And greetings and welcome to the QCast. This is season 4, episode 37. And on the heels of having a current D3 men's basketball All American on the show, Spencer Friedman of NYU, I've got another All American from the UAA, albeit an old guy, which is good. Starting to get some older people onto the show. Really excited to welcome my friend Jack Nolan, the pride of Bennett Academy and the pride of the WashU Bears, to the QCast. Jack Nolan, how the heck are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks a lot for having me, Bob. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. We're going to talk about something that Jack is doing as an alum, to support Justin Hardy, one of his teammates and his best friend. So this is going to be a fun one. I first just got to check in a little bit, um, Jack Nolan, on your whereabouts. So first of all, where are you living as a young alum nowadays? Where are you living?
Yeah. So after I got done at WashU, I moved back to Chicago, and now I'm living in Lincoln Park in the heart of the city. So it's
Oh boy,
enjoying it. Yeah.
absolutely living the young guy dream right there. Lincoln Park. Now, as a kid at Bennett, I'm guessing you were a Cubs guy. Were you a Cubs guy or a White Sox guy?
Die hard Cubs fan, Bob.
There's just something about that. I was positive of that. I knew it. And like you guys all flock to Lincoln Park, and you probably go to a million Cubs games and sit in the bleachers and all that, don't you?
I was 7-1 last summer of games
Yeah.
that I went to.
Yeah, I know the life you're living. I'm not mad at you about it. And then I believe your job. I think you're working at KPMG as a consultant. Do I have that correct?
Yep, that's right.
I always wonder, Jack. I run into all these guys about your age, and they're all consultants, and I'm just wondering, like, well, how old are you? About 25, 26? What are you?
I'm still 24.
24. I
Yeah.
mean, how are you consulting anyone on anything, Jack? Like, what are the qualifications to consult people is my question for you.
Bob, I rely on the rest of my team. Let's put it that way. I've got guys older than me that are a lot more experienced
Okay,
with the
that makes
clients that we work with.
that
So
makes that makes more sense because
I have a lot of help.
every young kid out of college I meet is a consultant, and I'm 52 years old. No one's asking me to consult on anything, so I got to get one of those gigs. In all seriousness, well, first of all, too, we got to check in on the Bears. So you got WashU having another really good season. Big injury to their best player, Drake Kinsvater. Darn it, Kinsvater. So Drake goes down, still having a good season. Picked up a big win at Rochester, and they're grinding it out, Jack, trying to get in the tournament. They probably need to beat WashU tomorrow. What's your take on the Bears so far this season?
It's been a tough. I mean, it's been a tough year for them. Obviously, with in terms of injuries, I know they've had a ton of guys banged up throughout the year, and then when someone like Drake goes down, that's always really tough to adjust. And I think guys have done a really nice job stepping up since he's gotten hurt, and they've been able to get some wins in a really, really tough conference this year, obviously.
Absolutely.
So it's been fun following them this whole year. I was down there for alumni weekend a few weeks back now, which was really fun seeing all the guys again, and hopefully they can squeak out a few more wins here down the stretch and get into the tournament. I'll take the Bears any day of the week.
Yeah, as usual, the top of Region 8 is an Illinois Wesleyan WashU kind of conundrum right now. I mean, we got you by a decimal point or two, and then I think if you beat NYU, it maybe flips, and so like here we go again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always crazy. The Pool C stuff in D3 is a wild game. I was never a fan of it personally, but I guess it's one of those things where like, what's the right way to do it?
Right.
Nobody. I mean, it's really hard to come up with an easy solution. So it's one of those things where there's going to be a lot of deserving teams that get left out. That's just
Yeah.
how it is. That happened to us my sophomore year. I
Yep.
was not happy about it. That's just how it goes in D3. That's the reality of it.
It's a very, very factual statement, my friend. And just for those of you that aren't familiar with Jack, he graduated from WashU with his undergrad in 2021, and then he did a year. He got a master's degree. Both of those are in finance, so he officially was done in 2022. and he was an All-American, a D3Hoops.com All-American. His senior year, he averaged 21 points and 5 rebounds, was one of the elite shooters in Division III. I always measure a great shooter by not just the guys knocking down threes, but boy, Jack, when you would square up from 17 feet, it was money. You know, it was pure. That mid range was something you lived on quite a bit. Is that correct?
I loved my mid-range shot, Bob.
I know you did.
It's something I took great pride in. Honestly, I always offensively, I always wanted to be a three-level scorer. I wanted a complete game. I always wanted to be that guy that no matter what shot it wasn't a bad shot. And I have to give a lot of credit to Pat Richardson, who I know you're a Rice guy,
Yeah, absolutely.
but Pat Richardson was my trainer actually for maybe 7 years, from the time I was like a freshman in high school all the way through college, 8 years almost. And Pat, the mid range was his thing,
Oh
and
yeah.
he taught it to me really well, and give a lot of credit to him for that. And it definitely served me well over the years.
Speaking of mid range, I can't remember what season it was. Do you remember this game where you made every crazy ass shot at the Shirk Center that you took? Like terrible shots. Some were terrible shots, and they all went in. Do you remember the game I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. I think that was my junior year. Probably one of my better games ever. I'll tell you what, I loved playing at the Shirk Center. I don't
I
know what
could
it was
tell.
about that place. I don't
Yeah.
know what it was. I don't know if it was the rims or the arena feel. I loved playing there. It was a lot of fun. I always happen to play pretty well there.
Yeah, that basket, on the stream screen to the right, like you started making a few in the second half, and just there was some shot. I'd have to go back. I just remember like there was like a shot, like, oh, that's a terrible shot, and it went in. So I just had to give you a shout out for your performances at the Shirk Center when you were a freshman. You had another big game at the Shirk Center. I think maybe Brady Rose got you in between those two games, didn't he? Down in St. Louis, Brady Rose did a little
Yeah,
did a little number on
he
you.
was good. Yes, he had like 28 on us
Yeah, he was
my
good that
sophomore
time.
year.
So,
Yeah.
obviously the rivalry continues, and it will continue. But we're here to talk about something very important that you're doing, which is really exciting, and that's the Hardy Strong Speaker Series. I've been seeing a little bit of this on Twitter, and I'm excited to learn more about it. So, first of all, would you speak if you would about kind of your relationship with Justin Hardy? I think most people know Justin's story, but just talk a little bit of how close you were with Justin.
Yeah, so Justin grew up in St. Charles, and I grew up in Downers Grove. But up until college, our paths had never really crossed. Justin was a year younger than me, so I was a sophomore when he was a freshman at WashU. And when he came in, I knew right away that we were going to have something really, really special on the court. I mean, he came in as a freshman and was a
Yeah.
physical force, even as an 18-year-old. Was an absolute monster. So I knew on the court we were going to be, we were going to be good and have something special. We complement each other really well. But our relationship honestly took a lot longer to develop. Those first couple of years, Justin and I, we would butt heads sometimes. We had a little bit of the trying to figure out what was what in terms of sharing the ball and just figuring out how to play together. And then off the court, that relationship took some time to develop. But I'll never forget that run that we had to the Sweet 16 before COVID canceled the rest of the tournament.
Right.
We grew so close in those months leading up until that cancellation in the Sweet 16. And after COVID happened, about a month later, tournament was canceled, basketball's over. It was mid-April, and the whole world was on lockdown, right? And I'm back home in Downers Grove, and Justin's back home in St. Charles. And at this point, like nobody's left the house.
Right.
It's mid-April, so it's only been a month. And on my birthday, Justin drove 45 minutes from St. Charles to my house to literally just sit out by the fire with me and hang out for a couple minutes, for 30 some hour, whatever, how long it was. But at that point, I was like, okay, like this kid's pretty cool. And from there we clicked, and we were best friends from that point on. And when Justin got sick, we only got closer. And in that last year of his life, we became what I would say best friends. I mean, we were with each other all the time, whether it was on the court or hanging out at his place. He lived with a bunch of basketball guys. That last year, in the year that I was doing the master's program, I was just in a studio, but like right across the street from those guys. So I was over there all the time, and we were just constantly hanging out. So we got really, really close.
That I feel like you were kind of a connecting point for me and Justin in terms of the QCast that we did, and talk a little bit about that side of it, because I think you were very influential, if I recall him telling the story to me, in that, like, his story wasn't out there at all. And I had interviewed Coach Yuckham on the QCast, and I got word that there was some big health thing going on with Justin. And I just asked him a very vague question, and he said, I really can't talk about it or something. And then all of a sudden, like, that episode aired, and then I get this note from Justin, an email that says, if you want to talk about my story, I'd like to talk about my story. What was he? Was he apprehensive at first about doing that, or just talk a little bit about the decision to come on the QCast?
Yeah, absolutely. So when Justin first got diagnosed, um, early on, only a few people, a handful of people, really knew the magnitude of how bad it was. Really, his family and closest friends, including myself. And I mean, there were people at the time. He just wanted to keep it really tight. There were people
Right.
on our team that didn't know the full magnitude of it. I remember, and I'm sure we'll get to this at some point, but do you remember that Dubuque game when Justin scored 28 points?
Yep.
There's a story I just heard actually a few weeks ago that there was a parent on the WashU team that had asked another parent during that game, like, "Oh, Justin looks great. Like, has he beaten the cancer? Like, has he put that all behind him?" And like hearing that story, it's like, no, he was actually getting worse every single day, like while he was accomplishing all of that on the court. And so, yeah, it was really close to Justin wanted to keep it really tight to the vest. Anytime people would ask questions about it, the answer I would give was just like basically, well, it's not good. That was sort of what I would always fall back to, but
Right.
keep it vague. And then after that Dubuque game, maybe a week later, I texted Justin and I was like, "Hey, I've sort of been thinking about something. You want to like grab a coffee or like go for a walk or something?" At this point, he's pretty sick, so he couldn't do a whole lot. But he's like, "Sure, let's take a walk around the block or whatever." And I sort of brought up this idea of going public with the story in hopes of inspiring all these people, because obviously witnessing what Justin was accomplishing,
Right.
I knew that this thing could go viral. I mean, it was
Right.
that inspiring. I knew that so many lives could be touched by this story, and Justin actually had been thinking about the same thing. So on that walk, as soon as it came out of my mouth, he was like, "I knew you were going to say that. Like, I've actually been thinking about this myself as well." And he had done some research. He told me on that walk, and he had not really found anyone before that had played athletics at that elite of a level, through cancer, through
Wow.
like stage 4 cancer, like he was doing, getting treatment. I remember him telling me there's a lot of people that have come back from cancer and played again, but I think I might be the first person to actually play
Right.
high level athletics
Right.
through cancer. And him saying that, he's like, I really think that this could be like an inspiring story for so many people. And if I could just touch one life, then, maybe that's worth it. And from there, he decided to go public with the story. That's when he reached out to you. He went on the QCast, and then from there, the media took off with it, and the story did what it did, and so many people were touched by Justin. I remember there was a surreal moment when we were down at the Final Four, in New Orleans, and a bunch of people had invited Justin down there. He had won the Writers Association Award for most courageous, Jay Billis had invited him down,
Right.
Coach John Shire, like a bunch of people. And we were sitting in the hotel room just before we were going to go to, I think it was the Final Four game, maybe the national championship, one of the two. We're sitting in the hotel room, just have ESPN on, and all of a sudden Justin's documentary comes on.
Wow.
Like just me and him in the room. And we had seen the documentary many times before, but in that moment, seeing it on the TV unplanned, like we didn't even know they were going to show it again.
Wow.
We sat there and watched it in silence, and at the end, Justin just goes, "That's pretty cool." And because we just knew how many people had seen that and had been touched by Justin's story. That same weekend at the Final Four, I caught him at one point like firing messages off on his phone. One of the days that he was really sick down there, and I'm like, "What are you doing over there? Like, get some sleep." And you're like, he's throwing up every hour or whatever. And he was like, "I'm actually answering all these DMs from people that have reached out, because they saw the story, they saw the documentary on ESPN, and he wanted to respond to all of them. He just wanted to touch one more life. That was what Justin was thinking about at the end of his life. Was he was caring about everyone else around him, and that's a lot of what I talk about in the speaker series.
You mentioned the Dubuque game, which I vividly remember. And, at the time, I didn't have perspective on just how bad things were. But the Illinois Wesleyan game at WashU was a few days after the QCast. It was no more than, it was the same week. I believe it was the same week, right? And to think that like this kid with stage 4 stomach cancer, I mean, you remember how good he was in that game. Like you would have never known. Like we came in there ranked, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, something like that. Like we were one of the best teams in the country, and he was unbelievable. Like what was that performance against Illinois Wesleyan by Justin Hardy at WashU Fieldhouse? Talk a little bit about that day.
Yeah, that one didn't surprise me after the Dubuque game. I remember after the Dubuque game, I was like, man, he's got it back. He's going to be real. Like, let's do this thing. And coming off of that momentum into the Wesleyan game it was awesome because I knew that Justin was going to be playing really, really well in the Wesleyan game. And he dominated. He was on both ends of the court. It felt like you said, Justin didn't have cancer, and
Right.
that's what was so amazing about watching him out there. Is somehow, some way, this kid who was probably throwing up the night before
Yeah.
and who couldn't feel his hands and couldn't feel his feet and operating on a limited diet and going to get chemo probably the next day at Barnes Jewish Hospital was out there contributing in so many ways on the court. It was just incredible to watch.
It was incredible. I remember I had just talked to him, earlier in the week, and he's telling me like this awful story with this smile on his face for an hour, which was just blew me away. And then to see him play, and to have that perspective of what he was going through, that just blew me away. Completely blew me away. Um, and of course, you mentioned being at the Final Four. Justin passed away. I'm not too long after that, right, Jack? I mean, it was May, wasn't it? Was it May that he passed away?
Yes. Yep.
In May, and um, to look back on, we're talking here about a period of just a few months, right? And that the game we're talking, the Illinois Wesleyan game, was in December. He had also some big games, I think, in UAA play, didn't he? Did he have maybe a game at Case, or I can't remember, somewhere along the way.
Yeah, several.
He's still playing really well into the UAA season after New Year's, which was incredible. Um, one of the saddest things I've ever seen, really, in Division III hoops was it senior night when you played Chicago, and
Yep.
he was clearly he was to the point where he couldn't play anymore, and he got in the game at the end, and scored a basket, and it was just like, I was watching the stream, and I couldn't keep it together. I can't imagine as his best friend, like just if you would talk about that moment that he came in the game and scored a basket and all that stuff against Chicago.
Yeah, obviously, you described it well, Bob. One of the most incredibly moving things that's probably ever happened in Division III athletics. It was so special in so many ways, and I know it happened a long time ago, but still give Bryce Hopkins a lot of credit on Chicago for letting Justin get that last bucket, and really just the entire Chicago team. They were really classy that day, and everyone hugging Justin, and it was just it was a really cool moment for everyone, and I think Justin really enjoyed it. Um, Obviously, I think not many dry eyes in the stadium that day,
No.
so it was, thinking back to it is, gives me mixed feelings in a lot of ways, but it was a moving day for sure.
Yeah, and I just remember like Jay Murray's call of that. Like he was in tears and he couldn't keep it together, and that made it even more emotional, right? Is like because he's in the building watching it, and so I just it was unbelievable, and he touched so many lives, and that'll bring us to the Hardy Strong Speaker Series. So, if you would, tell people what the Hardy Strong Speaker Series is and why you started it, and let's just kind of get into that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I would say the origination of the speaker series really goes all the way back to Justin's decision to go public with his story. Justin, he never had to go public with the story, and honestly, it would have been easier on him if he didn't. But
Right.
he wanted to do it, like we've already talked about, because he wanted to inspire as many people as possible with his story. And in a lot of ways, since Justin has passed away, um, his parents, his family have started the Hardy Strong Foundation, and that's been awesome. It's done so many really great things, um, but we've lost someone out there telling the story, and that's a role that I feel like I could fill. And so that was sort of how I came to the Hardys with the idea this fall, and they loved it. They were all about it, and so from there we took it and have started going out to some schools. So far, we've been to I've given 8 talks.
That's
I've
great.
been to Yep, I've been all over the Chicagoland area, speaking with varsity high school basketball teams, and I've spoken at WashU as well to the men's and women's team there. So it's been a really really good start. Ultimately, this is something that we want to spread this story as far as it will go, and I really do think it's an inspirational story for one, athletic teams all over, whether it's high school, whether it's college, but organizations, corporate events, really any individual and any team could benefit from hearing Justin's story in so many ways.
There's three kind of core principles in the speech, without getting into all of the speech, but I just want to give people a sense of like some of the messaging and what are those three principles that you talk about during the Hardy Strong Speaker Series?
Yeah. So during the talk, I touch on three decisions that Justin made that would define the rest of his life after he got diagnosed. And one is positivity, one is resilience, and the last one is love. Positivity, resilience, and love. The positivity piece was, I remember that first summer when Justin got really really sick, and he was going through all the worst treatment, had all the bad side effects. The positivity when he made that decision that every morning he was going to wake up and it was going to be a good day. That positivity is what powered him through the rest of his life and enabled him to accomplish all the amazing things that he did. When he decided to get back on the court, he knew it wasn't going to be easy. And that second decision, resilience, that's when that came into play. I mean, he had to go through so many hurdles to play basketball down in St. Louis that year. Like in the speech, I mentioned that I had my ringer on that entire last year, all night, every night, because Justin would call me sometimes and be like, "Hey, Jack, like, can you come over? It's one of those nights. Like, I'm throwing up. I might have to go to the hospital.
Mm.
Like, can you just come over, sleep on the couch, like." And then the next day he'd be at practice or he'd be at the game.
Right.
Like it was ridiculous, and just constant resilience. Um, and he'd be in a game one day, and the next day he'd be getting treatment at Barnes Jewish. And then the last piece that we talk about, love, that was the piece that really, above all else, Justin taught me the most about. That last year of his life, in the midst of this enormous adversity, the biggest adversity that anyone could face, Justin became a better a better person. He became a better teammate. He became a better friend. He just became so ultra others focused and cared about everyone else around him in a time when he easily could have been selfish. And that just taught me so much about and love and how I should live my life, frankly. And so those are the three biggest lessons that I learned from Justin, and three main points that I highlight in the talk.
So you've done it at 8 Chicagoland schools so far. You've spoken to WashU men's team, women's team, and I'm just curious, is there anything, anyone tuning into the QCast, if they want to help with this, help support it, or get the word out, or tell us ways that we can help with this thing that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I mean, first of all, if there's coaches out there that are interested in having me come talk to their program, to their team, there's a sign up. There's a link on the website. So Hardy Strong Foundation website. You'll see it. There's a speaker series, and you can send us an email, and we can absolutely find a time. I'll travel for it. Like, it doesn't have to be in Chicago. It doesn't have to be in St. Louis. Um, and then beyond athletics, if there's connections that anyone has in the corporate world and whatever, we want to speak to. Like I said, we want to speak to as many people as possible. I want to continue Justin's mission of touching as many lives as possible through his story. That's the main goal here.
What's been the reaction so far from the groups that you've spoken to? I'm just curious at some of the kind of the feedback and reaction you've gotten back so far.
Yeah, kids looking at their faces while I tell the story, a lot of it is like disbelief at first, like anyone would be, right? It's such a crazy story hearing about how Justin came back and got on the basketball court, and I've gotten so many positive reactions from coaches and them messaging me and saying, hey, like so and so came up to me afterwards and just said how much he was impacted by your talk and Justin's story, and that just means the world to me. That ultimately, that's why I'm doing it, and just to honor Justin and hopefully inspire as many people and as many people as I can through Justin's story. So it's been really good feedback.
Yeah, it's really amazing stuff, and I encourage everyone to go on the Hardy Strong website and look for the Hardy Strong speaker series that Jack is leading. I think you're onto something big, man, and kudos to you for making sure that his message carries on, making sure that his legacy carries on. It's really, from my standpoint, it's awesome because I feel a connection to Justin from the brief time that the QCast, and then the months after that we would text a ton, and including from the Final Four. I was one of those guys he was sending notes to, and I just remember not being able to process like how someone that sick was that positive, right? He's sending me pictures of him and Coach K or something, and I can't even remember. And so, like, really, really glad to hear what you're doing, Jack, with your time in making sure that people remember the messages that he worked so hard to get out there. Is there anything, Jack, that we didn't touch on? I want to make sure that we got all the message out here today. Anything else that we need to get on the table regarding the speaker series?
No, I mean, you asked a lot of great questions, Bob. So thank you so much for asking all of that, and allowing me to come on and give me this platform to spread the word about it. Um, like you said, I hope that in doing this, I'm honoring Justin the best way that I can, and spreading his story and inspiring others. Um, Justin, it was just incredible to walk that last year of his life with him. It will it changed my life and it'll continue to impact me forever. I mean, I will never be the same. It changed my perspective on so many different things. I learned so much from Justin, and my goal ultimately is just to spread that to as many people as I can.
Yeah, and I know that we can touch through this QCast. I know that we can get word about this to, first of all, the D3 nation, right? Like, just think of all the men's and women's basketball teams. If we just started there, right? If we just started there, how many would benefit from this message? And there's also a whole bunch of people that are going to watch this that are part of corporate teams and bringing people together for corporate meetings where this would be an unbelievable message. So kudos to you, man, and let's get this thing out there. I want to see this thing just blow up. It would be great, and I think really important to everyone that was so close to Justin. So Jack Nolan, appreciate it so much. I'm going to give you the final words here. What would you leave the QCast viewers with today in this message about the speaker series and anything else?
Yeah, no, just thanks so much, Bob, for having me. I appreciate it. And go Bears, go WashU.
I got to root for the Violets tomorrow, man. It's the regional ranking thing, but after that, I'm all in. I'm all in. Jack, I appreciate it, man. You're good people, and what you're doing is special, man. So kudos to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.